Welcome everybody to day 2, Strangest Species. Again, I'm your host, Mike Davis.
With the lovely Ethne Davis.
That's right. Good job.
You like the intro of myself?
I did like that. I was going to say it, but then I didn't have to.
I know. I had the opportunity to intro myself. Special moment in my life.
That is exciting.
I don't know why it won't.
Self-intro.
Self-intro. There we go.
I'm going to say self-intro every time. But that was well done, Ethne. Well done. So how's life?
It is good. Yep, it's good. Rainy today. I don't love rain. Like if I'm going to have winter, please just give me snow. That's my only, caveat.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't share the same sentiment, and that's fine with it. That's fine with me.
January, and it's like 45 degrees. I don't hate it.
No, I don't hate the 45 degrees. I think you're misinterpreting. I don't like the rain.
Right.
I understand the temperature, if you're going to get precipitation equals rain.
That dictates what kind of precipitation you have.
Right. I wish we could be on the precipice of like freezing, like -1 or maybe like -2 or 0. But if we're going to have precipitation, it would be snow.
That would be like 32 for the vast majority of our audience.
No, there's way more metric countries listening than imperial. In fact, all of the countries listening are metric except for one.
But there's way more listeners in that one.
Yeah.
Than all the other
Someday
ones
I will
combined.
see all countries in the world to turn metric.
Maybe.
Just kidding.
Maybe. But I doubt it.
All right.
But yeah, there's a lot of rain today. I walked the dog and it was I almost fell a couple times because the mud was so
thick. Well, yesterday was
thick.
so sunny and beautiful, and it was just awesome. So, not that I need sunny and beautiful. I don't mind cold and sunny. When I say cold, I mean mildly cold. I don't want like Canadian temperatures. So,
no Canadian temperatures.
No,
That's why we don't live in Canada. So anyways, yeah, not a whole lot else
going on.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
This week's been good. I've had a lot of things going on. A lot of weird things.
Yeah. Falling apart.
Yeah, I'm falling apart, basically. But I got like all my doctor's visits, every doctor, every specialist.
You got subpoenaed to court.
I got subpoenaed to court.
That's cool. Not really. But
Not really.
It's unique and different.
That's true. And it's a court that I cannot Zoom. And it's a court on the west side of the state. So I have to be flown or, they'll put me up for accommodations and stuff. Fly me there, all that kind of stuff. It's great. But it's really bad timing. So,
But it got pushed back.
Yes. So on Thursday, it was supposed to confirm if it started trial on Monday. And whatever happened, they ended up moving to 4 weeks from now. So grateful for that. I'll have to deal with that when that comes, but just so grateful.
It's weird because I'm sure you're going to fly out there. Mm-hmm. You're going to go to court.
Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to testify.
You're going to testify for a grand total of 4.5 minutes.
Yep. I mean, she kind of gave me a brief rundown. The lawyer.
I highly even doubt there'll be a cross-examination.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, maybe a few questions by
the plaintiff,
the defense attorney.
Or the defense or whatever.
Just to get on the record.
Yeah, maybe.
But I can't imagine. I mean, it's over a identity theft thing. We've never met the person. We don't know anything about it.
But the identity theft was huge and involved many, many people.
Right.
And I am just one of the victims of that. And then it ended and she got caught in grand larceny or theft auto. Thank you. So, I mean,
it's not like we know this person.
No.
It's not like it's a lawsuit. It's not like something bad happened. I mean, I guess something bad happened, but not,
What's bad? Getting your identity stolen and like someone opening up a million accounts is so obnoxious and ruins your credit score. I mean, it's not like a murder.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Or some violent.
There could be worse things
that
you could be
100%.
testifying
yes.
about.
100% is yes.
So, but it's just weird.
Yeah.
That you have to do that.
So Anyway, I just, on top of all the things, I had to get subpoenaed to court. So that was interesting.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what it's like. My son thinks I'm the coolest thing ever. Wait, can I go with you? I'm like, I'm pretty sure you
yes,
can't.
you can.
Well,
you can take him.
I could. I mean, but he can't come to court with me, right?
I assume you can go to court.
Like into the room?
I don't know why he couldn't sit in the
because the judge would probably kick him out.
Well, that's true. He would disrupt court. But in theory, people could go and sit in.
They can listen to, like, they don't care about kids being in there? Huh, weird. Okay.
I don't know if there's a age requirement for court.
I don't know.
But yes, I mean, they're public hearings.
Huh.
So.
Well, there you have it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So today, what should we talk about?
What should we talk about?
Yeah.
Being on the beach.
Okay. Let's
in
talk
warm
about being
weather.
on the beach. It's not today's topic, but we can talk about it.
No, but I feel like that's what we should talk about.
Okay.
So on the way to this youth retreat this morning, I was listening to like what I call beach vibe music. It's the Elevators, and we love them. And they just have such a summery beach vibe to them. We're going to go see them in concert here on a couple days. But it just got me in the mood for some warm weather and some, and then a friend of ours yesterday texted saying like, hey, we want to come camping for Memorial Day weekend. And so I think people are starting to get the itch, it's almost February.
If it's January and it's 45 degrees outside, you're like, hey, springtime's here.
Right. Well, or even just...
I'm sure we'll get cold
I
again.
think winter and darkness and stuff, it's a nice reprieve, but I think also in certain areas, especially where people live, it's like, okay, the reprieve is too long. Let's get cracking. So anyway, I just having beach vibes today.
Yeah, I'm always ready for
the beach.
The beach.
Yeah.
Always.
So anyway.
And I'm always ready for spring, come January 2nd.
You're a great winter person until
Christmas is over.
And then
I'm ready for the sun to come back.
Yeah. You live in the wrong place.
Well, that's where I live, so.
Sorry about that.
It's a cool place in the summer.
And I'm like ready to ski. I'm like mentally prepared to ski after Christmas is over. Or not really ski, but snowboard. Be on the mountain.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right.
What are we really what are we really talking about?
You might have actually heard today's story before.
Ooh, you have faith in me that I might know it?
I do.
Okay.
If you've ever taken, actually many of you listening may have heard this story before, not from any kind of podcast or anything like that, but rather almost every single entry-level psychology class talks about this person.
Freud.
No, but he's strange.
But almost every entry-level psychology class has Freud in it.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a clue.
Today we're going to talk about Phineas Gage.
Phineas Gage. I feel like maybe as you start talking, but nothing is ringing any bells.
Okay.
So.
I know I talked about Phineas Gage in high school.
Is this like a hypothesis? No, it's a person?
It's a person.
Okay. Well, obviously it's a person, but like, is it some hypothesis like Freud?
Right. No,
it's like
he is not a psychologist.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Let's go back in time.
That's your back in time sound?
That was today. Yep.
Wow.
1848.
That's okay.
Do we go further back?
No. That was louder.
Yeah. Well,
Does it get
it depends.
It gets louder as you get further back in time?
It's rate dependent. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So the further back you go, good thing we're not going back to like the 1500s.
I do not. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be bad. So 1848, Phineas Gage was a foreman for the Hudson River Railroad Company.
Oh, I know that.
Railroad. It's a hard word for me.
Railroad. So this takes place in Canada?
No. No, it takes place in the United States of America.
Oh. But Hudson Bay.
Hudson
River Railroad. I feel like that's very Canadian.
Well, the Hudson Bay is in Canada.
Yeah.
There could be, I don't know if the Hudson River comes all the way into the States. Or maybe there's a second Hudson River. It's kind of a popular name.
It's the same Hudson River. Remember when we wanted to name our son Hudson?
We have a lot of listeners in New York. I don't know if we ever wanted to, but I remember talking about it.
No, we wanted to.
Why didn't we then?
Because it was very, very popular. Like too many Hudsons. It was like all of a sudden when I thought of Hudson remember Lincoln?
I remember him.
And
He lives here.
No, remember when we were trying to name him? And I was like, oh, Hudson is it. I think it's it. And then it was like too many Hudsons everywhere.
Just wasn't it.
So then I was like, oh, no. And the sun thing is pretty which is not bad. It was just very popular.
Right. We have a very nice Hudson Bay blanket.
Oh, yeah. Those are not cheap. And Mike wanted to buy me a Hudson Bay jacket.
I did.
And actually, my mom, I think, had one growing up. I swear. Or my grandma. I've seen one.
Amazing Hudson Bay jacket at an antique shop like a month ago.
But still like $200.
$200.
Yeah.
But I was afraid. It was big, but that doesn't mean anything because...
Well, you were afraid that I wouldn't want you to be spending $200 on a jacket that I would wear like 2 times a year.
Well, that's true too. But I was more worried about it not fitting you.
Well,
and spending the money.
Well, that would be a double whammy. Yeah.
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 There's nothing better than buying you something expensive and then giving it to our daughter.
Yeah, that's terrible. Which has only happened once. Just that one Canada hoodie. Zip up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That I can think of.
Truth. So anyways, Phineas, he was an explosive foreman. Okay. Not explosive like he was explosive.
He worked on explosives.
Yeah. So he was in charge of the team that would blow up crap to clear the way
for the railroad. Gotcha.
And the way he would do this is they would dig a long, narrow hole in the ground that they were working. And then they would, a few feet deep, so maybe like 3 or 4 feet, and they would pack the far end of the hole with explosives, like black powder, or maybe, I'm sure it wasn't black powder, but something like that. Then they would fill the hole up with dirt, sand, anything, and obviously have a fuse. They would light it, it would explode, but the reason they would pack all of it on the top is so that explosion would go into the ground and not up through the hole. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So to do this, they have a big, giant iron rod called a tamping rod that these guys would use to pack down all the material.
Okay.
Now, Phineas had been doing this a long time. Like I said, he was one of the foremen.
Okay.
He had his own custom-made tamping rod.
Ooh, cool.
So it was iron.
Like our custom-made fire poking stick by a gift from my mom.
Like that, but totally different, other than custom-made.
Well, that's kind of what I'm picturing, but I don't really know.
So, no, it's just like think of it like a piece of iron.
Yeah.
About 1.25 inches in diameter.
Okay.
And about 3 or 4 feet long.
Okay.
But his special one was pointed at one end.
Huh.
Kind of like a javelin is what it looked like. Cool. A big iron javelin. And he would pack it down. So, on September 13th, 1848,
okay,
Phineas is preparing a hole. He's put the explosives in. So you got to pack those down, and then you put the dirt in, keep going, right?
Okay, something's coming to my mind.
What's coming to your mind?
Does this poking stick go through his brain and doesn't affect him or something? And he's not, no?
Yeah, no, this is it.
Okay, but I don't know anything else. That's the only thing that's coming to my mind.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
He's packing, and something from one of his crew catches his attention.
Okay.
So he turns, and he's talking to him. And when you turn your head, he's kind of like shifting forward to look, to see. And he's tamping, and suddenly his tamping rod hits a rock and sparks the explosives in the hole.
Oh, okay.
And his tamping rod takes off instantly like a rocket out of that hole. Now, lots of bad things could happen with a rocket projectile that's 4 foot long, spiked iron.
Yeah.
But as you already alluded.
Yeah, this is vaguely, but I can't remember anything besides that.
What happened is, think of it like a rocket launch.
Yeah, like a rocket launch.
But the problem for Phineas is, yes, it went right through his face.
Into his eyeball. No?
So,
no? Side of his face? I don't remember any details.
Yeah, so it went into his left cheek.
Oh.
Behind his left eye.
Whoa.
But severing his left eye. And then out through the top of his head.
Whoa.
Completely cleanly. I mean, it happened so fast that I'm sure he didn't even know what happened.
Well, I mean, I think you'd figure it out when your eye wasn't working.
Well, yeah. So the rod flies off a couple 100 feet.
Oh, no.
Everyone's like, oh, what the heck?
Heads up.
Yeah. Look over. Phineas is laying there on the ground just twitching.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure everyone's thinking like, oh my, he's dead.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah. And so he's just laying there twitching on the ground, as one would after having a 4-foot iron rod shot through your head.
Yeah.
But then the craziest thing happens. Within a few minutes, he stops twitching and he just sits up and looks around. Like, what's happening?
Like, I can't see out of my eye.
Yeah.
Like me. He's like me right now, literally.
Yeah. Only he was missing an eye. And it was probably...
I thought you said it went behind his eye, so it just would have like cut his...
So it severed the eye completely.
But from the optic nerve.
Right.
But the eyeball was still in place?
I assume at this point, yes, it would be. I assume the muscles are still holding it in. He does lose the eye.
Okay. I mean, you'd have to. I think there's no other option.
But at which point he loses the eye, I'm not sure.
Okay. It didn't come
dangling
out
at this
it's not
point.
like stuck on the end of the stick. Like...
No, but whether it's lying a few feet away, if it's bobbling
I don't want to
out,
know. I don't want to know.
if the surgeons take it out later, I don't know.
Okay.
That'd be it's just a rough day at the office.
This just slightly. Just the way you say that. It's like rough day at the office.
Yeah.
That's a bad day.
That's a lot of OSHA WISHA reports.
Seriously. I don't think they had those.
No, probably not.
Okay. So he gets up and looks around
So
and
he's sitting there looking around. I'm sure everyone's standing there looking at him like,
whoa,
what is happening?
like a zombie.
Yeah. So you just had this thing blow through your head.
He's got to be bleeding.
Yep. I would assume quite a lot.
Yeah.
Well, he has a massive hole on the top of his head.
Right. And through his cheek.
And through his cheek. But the one on the cheek's much cleaner because it's the entry point, right? So everything's being pushed in, where the one on the top, everything's, exploding out.
Thanks for the sound effect.
Thank you. I have lots of sound effects today.
Okay.
So after a few moments, he stands up and he's walking around on his own.
This is crazy.
Yeah. And so his coworkers all rush over. They get him on a mule cart, and it takes him back into town to the hotel where he was staying.
He's just like bleeding out of his brain and his cheek, and they're just like, okay, get on the mule cart and take 4 hours to get back to the hotel.
Well, I think it was only like half an hour away.
Okay, I mean...
Maybe an hour.
Okay.
I don't remember now.
It's still a really
Maybe
long
not.
time, don't
Yeah,
you?
anyways, yeah. And like, remember when... It's got to be a rough trip, like bouncing along the back of a mule cart. Maybe that's when the eye came out.
I mean, yeah. There's nothing holding in. It's just like...
Yeah. Last Christmas, the day after Christmas, 2022.
Gave you my heart.
I hate that song.
I know you do.
Our littlest guy completely broke his arm.
Oh, yeah. That
Fractured it to where it was just a dangly noodle.
It was terrible.
And driving him to the hospital was one of the worst parts because it was unsupported, right? I mean, it was supported as best as it could be, but
every little bump
and stuff, and it's icy and snowy, and so I just can't imagine how Phineas is enjoying that cart ride, just bouncing along.
Ugh, sounds terrible. I mean, it sounds terrible when I'm fully feeling good. It sounds absolutely terrible right now with the way my head and my eye are feeling, let alone if a rod had gone through my head. But maybe he's so in shock he doesn't feel anything.
Well, I would hope at this point he is in a lot of shock.
Yeah, okay.
So he gets to the hotel. A half an hour later, the doctor arrives. And what do you think Phineas is doing at this point? It's now probably been, I don't know, an hour, let's say, since...
I mean, freaking out?
Yeah, so he's sitting on the porch of the hotel, waiting for the doctor. And the doctor can, as he comes up in his carriage, can see the 2 holes in Phineas's head.
Wow.
From the road, like before he ever gets there. And the doctor claims that Phineas said to him when he came up, "Here is work enough for you to do, doctor."
Oh. Very calm.
Yeah.
Very just relaxed.
The doctor claimed, and I didn't write his name down, but it's out there. Like you could actually look up who it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That he could see Phineas's brain pulsating.
In the hole?
in the hole as Phineas is talking to him. So you walk up to your patient, and he's like, hey, doc, look at this one today. And he's like, I can see your brain.
Well, and like, even what do you do for treatment?
Well, back then, not a lot.
That's what I mean. Like, your skull wouldn't close over.
So the doctor, examines him, during which time Phineas begins to feel ill and start vomiting.
Rightfully so.
Yes. The doctor says that while Phineas is vomiting, the force of all that action...
His brain's poking out of his head.
Well, it expels about half a cup of brain matter onto the porch.
Oh my gosh.
So he's throwing up, and on the top of his head, brain's literally like flopping out.
Oh dear. You need to...
Get it on your shoes.
You are not going to last. Like, I mean, I'm sure this doctor was thinking...
Oh yeah, you're dead.
You're dead.
Yeah.
For sure.
You don't see injuries like that a lot.
Ever?
Maybe you saw more back then, actually. I don't know.
So, yeah. Yeah, I just don't even know.
So another doctor shows up, and they clean the wounds as best as they can. And they...
So he's vomiting, but he doesn't pass out? He doesn't, doesn't progress to being, okay, this is crazy.
It makes it through the vomiting. So they really... they clean up as best they can. I do think they put a few chunks of skull kind of back in the spot.
Like bovine skull or what?
No, I think pieces they found.
Of his own skull?
Yeah.
But they don't osseointegrate, do they?
No.
You'd have to, reinforce them or something.
But essentially, they clean it up a little bit. They bandage him up.
Okay.
And
this is so interesting.
I'm sure they think, we'll get him as comfortable as he can. He's going to die here.
Yeah.
I mean... If he doesn't die from the wound, you can't have a gangrene head. It doesn't work.
I would imagine not.
No.
Especially not a brain. Maybe a gangrene cheek. But
so they asked Phineas, hey, do you want some visitors? Because, you're probably not long for this world.
Yeah, you're going to die.
And he tells them, nah, I'm okay. I'll be back to work in a few days. I'll talk to people then.
He says that to them?
He tells that to him, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think the hotel had a mirror, maybe.
I mean, but he knew what happened, right?
Maybe not. Maybe his brain was so demolished. No, I'm sure he knew.
And he wasn't kidding. He was just like, I'm going to be back at work.
Yeah. 'Tis his flesh wound.
Maybe that's why he ends up... Anyway, okay, keep going.
Yeah. It just made me think how far society has changed. We can't get so many people to do any job. And Phineas is like, I can't afford to not be working.
I'll take a day off.
Yeah. I'll be back on Thursday.
I'll be back on Thursday without my tamper rod. Dang it.
Someone go find my rod.
Okay. And clean it up a little.
Yeah. So the next morning he wakes up and he's in pretty good shape, all things considered. You would think you would be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But they say the next day he was pretty good.
So did they stitch his cheek? They would have
I don't know
to.
if they stitched it. I mean, how would you eat? How would you do anything, right?
That's what I can't figure out. I mean,
I think they bandaged his head, kind of like, Bob Cratchit, not Bob Cratchit.
little tiny Tim.
No, not Bob Marley. I'm combining all the names here. Anyways, Ebenezer Scrooge. His business partner, Jacob Marley, when he shows up and he's got the bandage around his head.
Okay.
I think one of those numbers, keep his jaw closed.
Okay.
And you could hold a bandage to the cheek.
Yeah.
And the head. It's pretty good. You just can't open your mouth.
Okay.
So,
I can't.
anyways, day 1 he's doing pretty good. Day 2 though, he totally loses his mind.
I mean, he's already lost literally part of his mind.
He's literally lost the part of his mind. Now he kind of really loses his mind. He becomes delirious. He doesn't recognize anybody anymore. And he just is very out of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting weaker and weaker. So that goes on for a few days.
Probably he needs food and water.
I mean, could be. Or it could be the hole in his head with his brain leaking out. Or a combination of both.
Minor detail.
Yeah.
Just a minor detail here.
But I like your solution. Oh, you need some water.
No, I mean, like, obviously it's going to not help him if all of this is going on and he's dehydrated
That's
and
true.
hungry. That's
He
what
needs to
obviously I
some
know
water
that's
and
not
some
going to
sleep.
solve his hole in the head problem. I just feel like it's amplifying it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So
Oh dear.
that goes on for a few days, but then his cognition comes back.
Oh, it does.
But he's kind of falling into a dazed stupor. He's not in a coma, but he's kind of heading that way. So he
Okay.
recognizes people, but he can barely talk. He can barely stay awake. You know,
Okay.
he's just, probably what you would expect after having a 4-foot iron rod shot through your head.
Right. Yeah.
So 2 weeks after the accident, Phineas is essentially a zombie. Just blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
That was my impression. So the doctors come, I'm sure they're coming lots, but they come, they're looking at him, and they take the bandages off to clean up things. And they were probably doing this frequently,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a literal fungus that has sprouted on his brain.
It's probably a bad sign.
Growing up out of the bandages.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
Like literally, I envision mushrooms growing out of his head.
I mean, that's a bad sign.
It's not a good sign. I
It's a
cannot
bad
speak
sign.
to the badness or severity, but it's definitely not great.
Okay, I feel like that's a bad sign.
Yeah. He also has copious amounts of pus exuding from his cheek, his eye socket, and his mouth,
Oof.
which can't be pleasant.
Oh, this is just terrible, really.
And he's very much on death's door here.
Yeah, obviously.
But what kind of story would that be? It'd be way too short of an episode if he dies right now. So the doctors, they're like, we're not giving up on you, buddy. Hang in there.
We want to grow more mushrooms.
This is a whole new culinary experiment. We talked last week. You know how doctors love freaky cases, man.
Yeah. But
Just like Terrare, they're like, heck yeah. Don't
T-bone.
die. Don't die, Phineas.
Okay. All right.
So they
So,
clean him up as best they can, constantly. They start pouring silver nitrate in
Oh,
the
yeah.
wounds.
mm-hmm. Literally into the hole in his head.
Yep.
Feel
I don't know
like-
if they're just like pouring it in versus like putting on a bandage and dabbing.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a
Again, I don't know the
scary
technique for open brain
situation
wounds.
for open brain head stuff because it gets inside and they have no idea what it does. But like your cheek, sure.
I mean, there comes a point where
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you
because you're
just
going to
gotta
die
throw
anyway. You're
caution
just
to the
trying to
wind
do
and-
everything. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I see where we're going here.
I think these experiments were better than Terrare's.
Yeah.
Like, feed him a whole cat. See if that brings him back.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yes. So, but he doesn't die.
Does he still grow fungus?
No, the fungus, they nip the fungus
The
in the
silver
fungus butt.
nitrate, man. It did it.
I have some silver nitrate in my office.
I have some topical. Is it silver nitrate, the one that I have?
I have no idea. I doubt it.
Silver something. Remember the person that I said looks like kind of grayish when I went in and they had some health issues and they said they used a lot of this?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that silver
I
nitrate?
believe so.
Yeah, so I do have some.
You do have some, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was silver nitrate.
But like they must have ingested copious amounts of it. Was that in, where were we? Was
That's
that in,
here.
that was here?
That's here.
What store was it at?
Yeah.
Like a battery store or something? I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But it was definitely here. And
Okay.
I know that because of a person who remodeled our house here
Yeah,
was really big into
it. That's why I have it.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
anywho, a couple weeks goes on and he's on his feet walking around.
The
in his
silver
hotel
nitrate
room.
worked.
The silver nitrate worked.
So they knew about that even back in the 1849s?
Yeah.
Right? 1848.
1848.
1848. Okay.
So he's taking small walks, regaining his strength.
So like the fungus just stopped growing because the silver nitrate started and his cheek stopped pussing and
Yeah.
wow.
Body's healing up.
This is crazy.
So 10 weeks after the accident, he is able to return to his parents' house.
I thought you were going to say to work and I was like, are you kidding me?
Nope. but he's back to go to his parents' house.
Does he still have a hole in his head?
I would assume so.
So tell me about this.
Of some sort.
Can you reconstruct a skull nowadays with modern medicine?
I mean, this is not my expertise.
I know,
I would assume so.
Right. So can you staple bone together? Two pieces of bone together?
I would assume not.
Not. Okay.
I'm more of a crazy glue kind of person.
Okay. Okay. You have to close that at some point.
Well, your body's going to do everything it can to close that wound on its own as well, right?
Right. But can it, that's what I'm asking is, can it, because I know bone can regenerate.
Bone will definitely regenerate. I don't know if bone will regenerate.
In a circumferential, like
exactly.
I know. That's what I don't know.
So like if I take a tooth out, assuming you just have a hole, for the most part, bone is going to refill in that hole.
For the most part.
But if you lose one of those side walls, the bone's not going to regenerate laterally into that spot. Like you're going to have a divot there.
So I would assume the same concept
true?
works with the skull, right?
I would assume it's kind of spongy. Maybe you got tissue, you've got a lot of granulation tissue, scar tissue.
Would it still be white or would it be
that
pink?
Grows over. Probably pinkish. Probably doesn't grow hair there. I've never seen, I do know when you see pictures of Phineas Gage, he's always got a sick comb over. And I don't know if that's because hair won't grow there or that's just his cool style.
Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna look this up.
And actually, now that I think about it, I don't even know if the comb over is in the right direction. If his part is on that same side or not. Anyways. Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
That's fine.
Your brain itself is composed of gray matter and white matter.
Right.
I don't recall which one. One of them will not regenerate, one will.
I think it's gray matter
which
won't.
one's which. Again, not my
I think it's gray won't.
specialty.
But again, these things are things in school that you learn and then you never really talk about again. And so it's like vaguely in there, kind of like my psychology class. Like all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I have vaguely heard this story surely from Psych 101.
And I had heard the story, but never actually like the whole story.
No,
just
it's literally a
happens,
general,
which we're getting to.
Okay.
So when he gets home, his parents, the big thing, obviously he's very weak, but the biggest thing they say is he's very childlike.
Makes sense. Like depending on what part of the brain was damaged, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this happened in September, right? September 18th or something like that. The actual accident, September 13th. Yeah. So by that next summer,
he's still alive.
He was able to work a half a day on his parents' farm. Whoa. Like he was strong enough to.
He's still alive.
Yeah.
Like a whole year.
Not today.
No, but a whole year later.
Yeah. Not quite, but yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Not quite a year.
So he's childlike, but like what else?
Really, that's about it. I mean, physically, he pretty much recovers entirely.
So mentally, it's just a childlikeness, and he loses his eye.
His cheek definitely heals.
Is it obviously like maybe a little bit wonky?
Yeah, I mean, you can.
It's fine.
You can. I mean, there's lots of pictures of Phineas Gage out there after the accident. Yeah, I'm sure there's some, a big scar or whatnot, but. Yeah, I mean, it's a cheek.
It's a cheek.
He was very fortunate because it went right behind his zygoma or cheekbone.
Oh, that would have just shattered.
So it didn't shatter.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if it would have hit it.
So it kind of almost went like cheek through the roof of his mouth.
Like the soft palate.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, probably soft palate, maybe right between the two where the hard and soft meet. Yeah, up through the eye. But it still did come out through the frontal cortex. So it didn't go straight through his brain towards the back.
Oh.
It was almost directly
straight up. Almost. Oh.
Which plays an important role in all of this.
Yes,
because
it does.
And we're going to talk about this, but his frontal cortices are what's severed.
That's actually probably
I don't think you could survive if
any
it
other
went deeper in the brain.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I cannot even, but okay.
So he does eventually, and I don't know how much longer, but eventually he returns to work. He goes back to the railroad company.
Wow.
Now, the railroad company...
Was this some serious workers' compensation?
I'm sure they have zero workers' compensation. They're like, where in the world? You owe us money. You haven't been here for a year.
Poor thing.
Now this is the part that most psychology classes
talk about.
So he was fired from his job after coming back because they said he was a totally different person. And I'm going to read a quote from the railroad company. And I quote, "The equilibrium or balance, so to speak, between his intellectual faculties and animal propensities seems to have been destroyed. He is fitful, irreverent, indulging at times in the grossest profanity, which was not previously his custom, manifesting but little difference for his fellows, impatient of restraint or advice when it conflicts with his desires, at times perniciously obstinate, yet capricious and vacillating." I mean, these guys use some big words.
Well, they got to
What
make
kind of railroad company is this?
They got to justify why they let him go, though.
Yeah, like, oh, this sounds smart. We can't argue with that.
That's every time I read like the legal jargon.
Yeah.
Would you just say it?
Yeah, I'm not even done yet. So back into the quote here. "Devising many plans of future operations, which are no sooner arranged than they are abandoned in turn for others appearing more feasible. A child in his intellectual capacity and manifestations, he has the animal passions of a strong man." End quote.
The animal passions of a strong man. What does that mean?
He's like a gorilla out there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means. I think they're saying, yeah, I don't know. I think they're saying he is constantly,
Bouncing off the walls.
definitely, but he adheres to his most basic instincts,
Whether
whether that be very crude, very angry, very vile. He cannot connect his emotions from his logic.
Right.
Whatever he's feeling, that's what you're getting.
Right. So he's like a grown man.
You know, if your boss tells you,
But a child.
Ethne, you just got to calm down. And then you get mad, like you can restrain yourself.
Right.
And you can think, that wasn't a thing.
Gotcha.
And it
that makes
completely
sense.
changes personality because, again, those frontal cortices were severed. Right. Now, the frontal part of your brain is what, what's the word I'm looking for? It's where you process that emotional response. Mm-hmm. And so many modern scientists have looked into Gage's skull. They've reconstructed it. They actually have his skull and the tamping rod are in a museum.
Wow.
To this day. I mean, you can go and look at them.
Which museum?
The Phineas Gage Hole in the Head Museum.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm sure a quick Google search would tell you
I
its
just didn't know
operating
where
hours and where it's
where
located.
was
So
he
he was
from?
in New Hampshire.
Okay.
So somewhere in New England, I would presume, in
the
United
East Coast.
States.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's more so.
So the first major one reconstructed it digitally, his skull, to kind of locate his injuries and see what was going on. And it was pretty obvious that his prefrontal cortices were affected, if not completely severed. Like I said, that's the portion of the brain that controls emotional processing and rational decision making. Another study showed that he may have lost up to 11% of all of the white matter in his brain and 4% of the gray matter.
How would they do that study? I wonder. That's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm not expecting you to know the answer. It's like
I mean, they looked at these guys at the actual skull. So
yeah, but so like, what would the inside of a hard object without the brain in there tell you? Like,
they'll probably tell you the size of the brain.
Because maybe your brain would start filling in the spaces where there was none? No?
Well, just in general, you could tell how big the brain was based on how big the skull was, right? Relatively.
Sure. But if he had a full brain and then he lost his brain because of this injury, is the bone going to grow into the spaces where the brain is missing, in quotations? Like,
actually,
you know what I'm
answer
saying?
our earlier question, I believe the skull still has the hole in it. So I don't believe the bone ever healed.
Right. You said that essentially. You said like there might be really strong connective tissue or it was all going to be pink.
But I was
it's not going to be a hard.
Now I'm thinking like, oh, I think that's right.
Yeah. I mean, you never ever said it was going to grow back, but I just.
So.
I can't imagine how you live a life with a hole in your skull.
Well, you have many holes in your skull.
Yes, you're so funny. No, I mean, you really are, but no.
Thanks, babe.
They're all filled with things like eyeballs and
nerves, trunks,
boogers.
That's not your skull. That's in your nose.
That's in your face.
But
yeah, never mind.
That's cartilage. Not actually part of your skull.
Where are the other holes?
Well, you have a giant one at the bottom, at the base of your skull.
Sure, for my vertebrae.
In your auditory holes.
Yeah, my
your
ears.
Holes.
Yeah.
In your mouth holes.
But you said that's not your skull.
Well, your jaw, I don't know, are we calling the mandible part of the skull or not?
Are you calling the nose part of the skull?
No, not at all. But
all right.
There's still holes.
Okay. So that's okay. I'm just curious how they know that, the brain thing. But that's okay. Because obviously, as soon as he died, I'm sure he was like the biggest science experiment that ever happened.
Yes and no. And we'll kind of get to that a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But it's fascinating. And it's just, I'm sure, a hypothesis. You know, like, okay, a rod this big went through here. If the brain was this big, then this much had to have been lost just physically. You know?
Yeah, like the physics behind it.
I don't know.
But then when you're vomiting and it's falling out,
you have to account for that half a teacup or half a cup of the stuff that came out when you vomit. Yeah.
And then every time you bend over and some seeps out because you forget that you have a hole.
Mm-hmm. Or the fungus pushes some out as it's growing.
Or like when you pull off the fungus, you like remove.
Probably take a little bit of brain matter with it.
Oh my gosh. This is not funny. We are laughing at this poor man. Okay.
I feel like there is a statute of limitations on laughing at horrific events.
Yeah.
You know, like if this happened yesterday, it's like, no. But once it reaches like 50 years,
then you can laugh.
You can laugh at
okay.
it.
All right. Well, then I have full permission to be laughing.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not funny. It's just the concept is so foreign and absurd that it's like there's nothing else you could do but just kind of giggle.
But that's one of the main reasons why us humans have comedy. It's
True.
a way to
cope
with difficult and hard situations.
Good point.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's for.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm super embarrassed or like nervous, like at my OB office or something, I know that I have to do all those fun things. I just get giggly, like silly and kind of funny because I don't know how to handle it. So
But even like when you have a really bad something happen to you in life, you know, we'll talk it out for a minute or two and we'll talk real emotions.
And then sometimes you'll make a joke.
But then I'll throw one, because it's just a good way to cope with stressful situations.
It's true. Okay.
And make fun of people.
So I don't have to feel guilty.
I don't feel guilty, but I make fun of everybody, so.
Perfect.
Yeah. I have no statute of limitations on laughing at people.
So good of you.
But these stories are older.
Okay, so statistically, based on his stuff, we've got less gray matter, white matter, and...
So they hypothesized in this study that he possibly was suffering from an early onset Alzheimer's or dementia. Because of the brain loss. Brain matter.
That makes sense.
Which would also, describe a lot of things. Which makes me curious and wonder, like I know some people who've either had like a stroke and some of their brain has died, or Alzheimer's or dementia, and they become very different people.
For sure
like
they do.
A buddy of mine who you know, his dad had a stroke a couple years ago, and he said, if you didn't know him beforehand, you probably wouldn't ever know anything. Like you couldn't tell that he'd had a stroke. But when you know him, he's like, he just says some things sometimes you're like,
that's so not you.
Yeah, you can't say that.
You can't say that.
And that happens with dementia patients all the time.
Totally.
They become like super racist, super opinionated.
Yeah, just a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
For sure.
Where those people would never be that person when they were younger. And it made me think like how much of our personality really is just your brain function.
I would say a great portion.
Like some of the world's biggest jerks and just really mean people or people you don't like. Maybe their brain isn't fully functioning. Like your grandfather.
Like grumpy grandpa. Totally.
After World War II trauma.
Right.
Like
how much maybe his brain was really affected by that tank.
Not that it's an excuse, but maybe it gives you some rationale and justification as to...
Or even an ability to maybe forgive somebody or move on from something if you can just understand that is a very big possibility, right?
Right. But if it's something like this, like literally it's out of your control to do anything about it.
Oh, for sure.
Like you just
you do the best you can.
But maybe you don't even realize it. You know, like.
Well, I mean, the people around you
right.
are doing the best they can with him, but he
Sure.
probably has.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he doesn't even have the cognitive ability anymore.
At least not in the moment.
Sure, to retrospectively go back and look at that. Like, that
Right.
part is maybe gone. The brain is just a very
It's an enigma.
obscure.
Yeah. We don't know much about it.
Right.
Complete side note here. I have a musical reference, not reference, referral for anyone who's interested.
I already put one in. Don't worry. The elevators, remember?
That's right. This was totally different.
Okay, I want to know.
Well, you've heard of it before. It is called The Artist. Well, I don't even know who the artist is. He's a composer in England, I believe. But you have to go to YouTube, look up The Caretaker as the artist, and it's called Everywhere at the End of Time. It is 6 hours long, so it's a little bit of an investment, but it's amazing. So there are 6 stages of dementia, or 5, depending on how you want to look at it. But this is a musical journey through the 6 stages of dementia, and it is very haunting, not like in a scary way, but in like a.
It gives the feeling of what it would be like to be
in each stage of dementia.
And it gives a perspective for someone who is maybe loving or caring for someone who would be in those different
It's
stages.
very moving.
It is very moving, but you're right. There is a haunting, maybe an eeriness.
Put it on in the background. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it very well, but it starts to just playing these loops of
what stage are you in right here?
Stage 1 of like 1920s, 30s big band kind of music.
Yeah, it kind of starts that way.
And the whole point is to bring these nostalgic feelings of the past. And then as you progress through each stage, so now, let's see, you hear more and more static, and as these memories are breaking up, you know, and more confusion.
There's also, isn't there a visual component?
There is a visual component as well. And by stage 6, it's pretty much
like white noise. No.
Yes, but
I don't know
more
what
aggressive than that maybe, until you reach terminal lucidity, where it's clear again for a moment and then you die. And in the music, obviously, you just stop listening. It ends. There are truncated versions on YouTube, so you don't have to listen to the full 6 hours. I've never listened to the 6 hours at one time.
Insightful in a very dynamic, ever-evolving condition.
I was obsessed with it for like a month.
Yeah. Condition that might give you a lot of insight.
Dementia freaks me out, man.
It's just interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Terrifying. So anyway, it's just sad to think if that's what was going on with him.
Right.
You know, if he was literally losing his mind and just confused and blah, blah. So anyways, he wasn't able to go back to work at the mine. And so obviously...
Was he ever married?
No.
This happened when he was young enough that he hadn't reached that stage in life?
No, never married, no kids.
Okay.
But there is, which is funny you say that, because there's a lot of stories out there of him taking this aggression out on his wife and children. Like, it's kind of turned into this urban myth of Phineas Gage, the guy who became so violent and angry because he got his brain severed.
Oh.
And he would beat his wife, and it's like, but he didn't have one.
But he never...
Or kids.
Okay, well,
so it's yeah. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Right. I think things, like telephone, kind of go from, and then it gets exaggerated a little bit. But, well, in many ways, that's good,
Mm-hmm. So he wasn't able to go back to work. And so he started charging people to see him, kind of like a sideshow.
Aww.
And he actually became a pretty frequent contributor at Barnum's Museum in New York.
Oh.
So if you've seen like The Greatest Showman.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Him and Hugh Jackman used to hang out.
Cool. I want to hang out with Hugh Jackman.
What? Blow a rod through your head.
Because he really is the part.
And so he did that for a little bit. But after a few years, kind of the mystique of the guy with the holes in his head wore off. He wasn't able to draw as much of a crowd.
He just lived with his mom and dad, basically?
No, he moved to Chile.
Whoa. By himself?
Yep.
That is random.
Yeah, but it kind of brings up an interesting sidebar here. So he worked as a long-distance stagecoach driver.
Long-distance stagecoach driver in Chile.
In Chile,
Okay.
operating a huge wagon that was pulled by 6 horses, a team of 6 horses. So we're talking he's like a semi-driver.
For the
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, okay.
But oftentimes the carriage would be for people. So he'd be carrying them and their luggage. So he's more like a moving van, maybe.
Interesting.
And he was very successful. I mean, maybe not successful, he got rich, but had no...
Why Chile?
That's a great question.
That's so random. Okay.
And so eventually, though, his health begins to decline, and he decides he has to move back to the States. He moves back in 1859 to San Francisco. So that's where his mom
10 years
is.
later?
Mm-hmm. This is 11 years after the accident.
Okay.
He's having a lot of seizures. And so he moves back to the States in 1859 to live with his mom and sister. But in 1860, he passes away during a 5-minute long epileptic seizure.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's become so popular with psychology classes, I think a lot because of that quote from his workers, of him or his employer, of how he became this
All the wordy
wild
jargon.
animal man who couldn't control his feelings, which probably was true to a point.
To a point, I feel like it was true in that they didn't want to give him... They were worried with the concern of what his job was anymore and
That's
being
true.
able
You're
to
blowing
do
crap
his
up.
job. And so to make it seem justifiable, they probably made it very wordy, made him sound like an animal man. Whereas, you could simply say like, he just had these childlike instincts that is just not safe for this kind of job. And that probably would have sufficed. But all the wordiness probably made them feel better about having to let him go.
Right.
Because obviously he could
successful-
stagecoach or whatever,
right,
6 horses. And
which is very complex.
Yeah, I would.
When caring for the animals,
Yeah.
the hookup,
I would assume so.
the terrain,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got people skills involved there. Like you're carrying people in their property.
Unless he's just the driver and there's someone else who's actually doing
That's
like the...
probably true. But even if you're just the driver and there's people in your stagecoach, you
Yeah.
gotta have some,
Yeah.
interactions with them.
For sure.
And if you're yelling like an ape man, if you're Tarzan up there, you would think that wouldn't work very well. But he made a successful career out of it.
Yeah.
My guess, and this is just my guess, is that he probably was more animalistic at the beginning. And either one, as his body continued to heal, maybe he got a little bit better.
Yeah.
And maybe he learned himself better and kind of could control it a little bit more.
I mean, maybe he was
Responded a little
frustrated
bit
in the moment
more.
at the loss of his life, at the loss of not having that normal life and not being able to go back to that job. And so maybe he was acting a little bit more aggravated and irritated and stuff. But it's
And he had
a
been doing
culmination of
it
the
since
whole
he was like a
situation.
teenager. So yeah.
Right? I think there's probably a lot of factors for why, it would be more dramatic at the beginning.
But it definitely, I mean, like I said,
I still can't believe he lived. So he lived 11 years after that accident. Obviously, I think his lifespan was still extremely shortened from this accident. I mean, I think the epileptic
Oh, for sure.
seizures
All
were
stem
all,
from there.
yeah, I would assume so. Again, I can't say for sure, but I think that's probably the case.
yeah. So he passed away. He was buried. And it wasn't until a couple years later,
They dug him up.
yeah, that original doctor who saw him heard about that he passed away and went to his mom and asked, like, hey, can I have his skull
Can I
to
research?
Yeah. And she said yes. And like I said, his tamping rod and skull are on display
At a
now.
museum. It's very interesting.
Yeah, but good old Phineas Gage.
Good old Phineas Gage.
I just have this funny mental image of him just like twitching there and then just like sitting up and looking around like, what's going on, everybody?
I just have, yeah, it's amazing. Really quite the phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking, 1 degree in any other direction.
And it would just not work.
Right.
I mean, that's what's so amazing about
It blows his whole face off or
Yeah.
goes deeper into the brain.
Well, or just your whole occipital bone. I mean, like,
Right.
oof, you just, can't recover from some of those things. So,
yeah.
wow. It's very
Human body
interesting.
is fascinating.
Yeah. Very fascinating.
So, anyways, that's Phineas Gage. So,
Phineas Gage.
yeah, tell your friends
About Phineas Gage.
about all the things.
About the podcast is what
Yeah.
you're trying to say.
I went to
right?
basketball last week, and a buddy of mine who listens came up to me and was like, "Hey, I listened to this podcast, and they told me to share it with a friend, so I'm telling you about it."
Oh, also
Like, thanks, dork.
today at the youth retreat, they were talking about learning more about AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, you need to listen to our podcast. I mean, I said that to one person.
There you go.
Anyway, don't know if they will.
Well, that AI is probably not what they want to learn because our episode was all on like fake girlfriends
Well,
via AI.
they were also saying to do your homework with. And then they're like, I mean, just kidding. So
I use it all the time.
there's a lot of kids out there that are using it for sure.
It's great.
So
Well, good. Yeah, please, if you like the show, biggest thing you can do is just tell all your friends. If you don't have friends, go make some friends and then tell them.
oh my
It's a good thing to do in life in
Yeah,
general. It's just to
make some friends. Make sure you tell them about us as soon as you are friends with them.
Yeah, we're going to go on a cruise here soon. And I had some shirts made from one of our friends. And my plan is to wear them while singing karaoke to many drunken people. And then having them ask me about the shirt. And then I will take their phones and download it for them while they are drunk. And they won't even know what happened, but they'll be listening without even knowing. That's my game plan.
It's a good game plan, honey.
Great game plan.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yes. Anthony and I could tell some fun stories about karaokeing with fun people and drunk people.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
all
All right.
Well, everyone have a wonderful week. We will be back with another riveting episode.
Yes,
I
we
don't know
will.
if any of these things are riveting, but
Intriguing.
intriguing.
I like
I
it.
already know what we're going to talk about.
And
So-
I don't.
I never do, but this time I do.
I don't.
So, awesome possum. Everyone take care, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.